Welcome to Barbells and Motherhood. I'm your host, Julianne Bali, owner of Motherhood Barbell. I'm a pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach, CrossFit Level 1, and mom of 3. On this podcast, we discuss all things pre- and postnatal exercise, bust common myths such as don't lift over 20 pounds, educate about core and pelvic health, and explore all facets of motherhood. If you're a pregnant or postpartum mom that likes to throw around barbells, want to learn more about your pelvic floor and core, and looking for real research-based exercise guidance in any season of motherhood, this podcast is for you. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Barbells and Motherhood. Today, I am super excited to have with me my friends, Mikayla and Allie, who are both in the nutrition world primarily, and we are super excited to hear from them. We all met on Instagram, I believe, in different timelines and separately, but now we're kind of like all friends. But let's go ahead and just have them introduce themselves. And Mikayla, we'll start with you.
Okay. I'm Mikayla. On Instagram, I'm Mikayla Emily _. And I am a nutritionist on the side, but I also work in corporate America full time. And I am a new mom. My baby is 5 months old today.
Aw, yay.
Happy 5 months, Grayson.
Yeah.
And I'm Allie. My name's Allie Henry. On Instagram, I'm Allie Henry. Henry's with an IE. .rd. And I'm a registered dietitian. That's what the RD is. And I have 2 kids. So I have a 4-year-old, and then my baby is 6 months old, almost 7 months old.
Awesome. Yeah, all of us have had babies within the last year because I'm 9 months postpartum. Like all of us have been new moms again, and Mikayla for the first time being a new mom. And so we want to talk a little bit about that today, about postpartum and how that is going for all of us. And I know that a lot of what we talk about online is like body image and how to navigate that and how that can be really interesting in postpartum. So we're going to get into that as well. But first, I wanted to start with y'all's personal mission and message when it comes to nutrition, especially as we fight through all of the garbage that we see online. What is y'all's mission and message about nutrition? We'll start with you, Allie.
Okay, so mine, I would say, so I specialize in fat loss, but with an emphasis in mindful eating. So I help people achieve weight loss goals while maintaining a healthy or developing a healthy relationship with food. So that's part of my message. The majority of my clients are women and are moms too. So I really like working with them. I mean, they're people like me, so that's kind of fun. But what I have noticed with a lot of my clients is in motherhood, they start to feel a little bit lost, like they feel like they've lost themselves. And so a lot of my clients come to me wanting to get that back. And so that's part of my message too, is, establishing that balance where, you can have a healthy relationship with food, you can reconnect with yourself while also continuing to be a great mom, have a good relationship with your family and your kids. And I don't like the phrase "do it all," but because you're never really doing it all. But at least feeling more like yourself again.
Yeah. Yeah, that can be a tricky thing to figure out. And being able to find the balance between having goals for your body that are completely valid, but then also being mindful and not turning into something that may end up actually being more unhealthy.
Yeah, because I mean, when you talk about like the garbage that exists out there, that's what it is, right? It's
Yeah.
like there's so many unhealthy things that exist on, everywhere. I was going to say social media, but it's everywhere. And
Yeah.
um, there's a lot of pressure that women face postpartum on the way it should look. And so I like to empower women to ultimately determine what they want it to look when it's coming from a healthy place.
Yes, absolutely. All right. What about you, Mikayla?
I feel like Allie and I are very aligned with a lot of what we do on the day to day. I would say my clientele, actually, it's kind of funny because they kind of follow who you are, right? So I do have a lot of moms, but I also have a lot of working moms or just like corporate America working women. So I feel like that's a whole different ball game in itself sometimes, as being in the office and having to deal with office treats and office things coming in and luncheons that you weren't prepared for and things you can't control and a schedule that's not yours. And um, so I would say that's my typical clientele. I focus very heavily on body image. And while I can absolutely coach somebody through fat loss, I would say most of my clients come to me because they've lost weight before, they know how to lose weight, and they constantly struggle in maintenance and keeping it off. And so a lot of my focus, even though we do deficits and we do fat loss phases and things like that, becomes way more assistance and help during the maintenance afterward, and keeping the weight off, keeping what they want, keeping their habits, and essentially moving away from tracking more into that mindful eating type stuff. And then, but a pretty heavy emphasis on body image and, self-talk and, um, how you, again, your relationship with food. Like I said, Allie and I are very aligned with what we do. I think there's very, very minimal differences between us, but very unique stuff because we bring unique things to the table. So, I feel like that's why we work so well as friends.
Yeah, definitely. And that kind of leads into what one of the things I wanted to talk about today is because you were talking about how they struggle in maintenance. And I think that could be a lot of us. Like I personally am, if I'm doing a deficit, like, I don't know, I'm just fine with it. I just do it. And then it's like, whatever. And then in maintenance, I'm like, I'm kind of like feeling unsure and confused. And there's like this weird transition period. And I figured it out a lot more now. But what would each of you say of tools or different approaches to sustainably approaching our nutrition, in the everyday day-to-day setting? What would you say, Allie?
This is I have so many thoughts, but
Yeah, that's a big question. I understand.
Like, let me pull out my scroll and
Yeah. Yeah. We can say like top 3 or something.
Okay, so this is what's interesting about sustainability, and this is something that I used to say, and I don't really say it that much anymore, but I used to say is that if your methods aren't sustainable, then your weight loss isn't going to be sustainable either. And my perspective when I used to say that is essentially like the changes that you're implementing are things that you should be able to do long term, forever, which I agree with partway, but at the same time, your deficit isn't supposed to be sustainable. Like you're not
Mhm.
supposed to sustain a deficit long term, right? And so uh I think number one, go into it with a mindset of like, hey, this is temporary, but the things that I'm implementing is a lifestyle that I want to be permanent, right? And so your diet quality should be something that you want to be able to maintain long term. How you prepare food and plan food and work it into your schedule. Those are things that you definitely want to be able to maintain long term. Now, the quantity of your food is definitely going to change, right? The quantity of how much you're consuming in a deficit versus being in maintenance is definitely going to be different. But the way you approach a deficit fundamentally should feel sustainable. Like I said, meal prep, diet quality, uh, how you interact with your family, going out to eat, and understanding what that looks like. That should all feel like something. Hey, I could operate this way long term, right? So that's what I like to tell clients too, is just, what are the things that you're doing, and do you feel like you can do this long term? And if not, like what can we switch? Is there anything that we can switch? But I also like to remind clients that as they go into a deficit, I think people understand that things have to look different when they're in a deficit, but sometimes I think they forget that it's not just the deficit that things are going to look different. It is also after the deficit, right? This really is, you are changing yourself fundamentally as a person. And that doesn't mean you have to, uh, what's the word, abandon all of your values and make all new friends and everything like that. But some of the things that you do, whether that is continually, I don't know, overeating at night, or always celebrating with food all of the time, overeating continuously, like those things are going to have to change. And so, understanding as you begin the process and continue on in the process that you are becoming a new version of yourself, and assessing, how does this feel to me? Does this still feel in line with my values? Does the juice continue to feel worth the squeeze? Or do I feel like I'm, you know, going into an unhealthy path? And that's, something that we can assess as well is, uh, are they losing themselves in the process of fat loss rather than finding themselves?
Hmm. Absolutely. And it's not like changing fundamentally who you are does not happen in a 6-week
Right.
period. It doesn't happen even sometimes in a 3-month period. And so being patient with that process is probably another really big thing that we all talk about with everybody that we come in contact with anything having to do with health. Michaela, what about you?
Yeah, I think I have a couple thoughts and I want to like kind of, I hate this word, but piggyback off of Allie. But my first thought is I am definitely a proponent of like, I personally hate tracking my food. So I really try to keep tracking my food in a deficit and then like move away from that in maintenance. Like I don't want to have to track throughout maintenance as well. I've obviously done this long enough that I can get away with that. But I have a lot of clients come to me and they're like, okay, I tracked my food, all my deficit, and now I'm trying to do maintenance without tracking and it's like not working. And a lot of that comes from like passive tracking. And so a lot of what I talk about when it comes to successful maintenance phases or, staying focused and things like that is making sure you're tracking with intention, tracking and noticing how you feel in your body. Like maybe it's tracking at the end of the day and kind of seeing how close you were. Maybe it's eyeballing chicken first and saying like, okay, I think this might be 4 ounces. And then you weigh it afterward just to check it out and see how close you were or whatever. But this idea that you can just like plug in all of your numbers and they work great for the deficit. And then you don't want to track anymore out of the deficit, which is fair. Cause I personally don't want to track out of a deficit. I don't want to track forever. That's usually the disconnect I see there is that there's like no intentional or like mindful tracking involved. And then it just becomes this like data plug-in and then they just leave it and they don't notice anything. They didn't notice what foods had more fiber, what
Mhm.
foods had more protein, what foods had this or that, how they felt after eating that much. If they had a bigger breakfast that day, did they have more energy throughout the day? Like, so kind of making that connection of like using tracking as really a data source to figure out how, making those connections with how you're feeling and how you're enjoying your food or whatever, what's in food with that. And then going off of Allie's thing, I think it's like, yeah, you don't want to do something, forever. And when she's saying, if it's not sustainable, it's not going to be sustainable, then I think comes way more from people trying to like cut out carbs for a deficit and then put back
Right.
carbs in a maintenance phase, like, or cut out fats or whatever it is. And that's just not the case. A lot of the advice I give during deficits and maintenance is like, if I eat like 2 eggs on 2 slices of toast with a full avocado every day during maintenance, then like my deficit might look like 1 piece of toast and 2 eggs and half of an avocado just to like cut down on some of those calories from the morning. But like I'm not overhauling my entire breakfast and cutting a million things out and eating like, egg whites only for a deficit and then going back to eating that in a maintenance. And so
Mhm.
trying to find out ways to make your deficit close enough to your maintenance. And again, that comes from learning what's in things like in a maintenance or in a deficit phase, we're really prioritizing that protein and then trying to lower calories overall. So like when you're kind of deficit tracking your breakfast, it might just be like, okay, keep the things that are high protein. What can I cut out a little bit of this, but not cut out the whole thing? So kind of went on a tangent there, but I think it's very similar with, making it something that is sustainable because it's something that you are already kind of doing in general and that you've learned how to do. And then like Ali said, the habits, like if you never ever walk and during a deficit, you really aim to get 7,000 steps and then in your maintenance, you go back to 2,000, like that's not going to work. And so you have to make sure that the habits that you're choosing to be sustainable with are actually ones that you want to do and you realize that they are going to have somewhat of a lifestyle change for some people. Some people just are really, really good at all of that stuff. And they just really are crappy at going back to maintenance because they just, don't think about it and they're passive about it and whatever, but all their habits are still kind of in line. And then there's other people that they only eat fast food every single day and they've never cooked a day in their life. And there's going to be a little bit more of a lifestyle overhaul when it comes to a maintenance or a deficit. So,
Yeah, and everybody's super individual with their circumstances. Like you were saying, what habits they had in the past, what they grew up doing. A lot of the things that we, at least for me, like grew up thinking about food and about how to eat, I had to like unlearn as an adult. Like there's a lot that goes into it. And I have a question, because we're talking about different periods of our nutrition, maintenance, doing a deficit. And so we see this huge divide online of either never, ever, 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 ever try to lose weight. And it's a terrible thing to do because of this and that. Or we see like only try to do, we see the extremes. And so from y'all's perspective, what is your opinion on that? Because um, it's so hard to like I don't share a lot online. Like when in a deficit, like I don't share about it online because obviously I'm not a nutrition account, first of all. Like, but like I feel like there's a lot of people that would judge me because they're like, oh no, like weight loss is bad. But I was like, well, I can still have aesthetic goals anyway. What is y'all's take on that?
do you want to
I
go?
think
Sorry, go ahead, Allie.
Mikayla and I hate the absolutes.
Yes.
And I know I can speak for Mikayla with that, but
Yeah.
we do not like absolutes. And I think autonomy is so important. Not even I think, it is. It is. Autonomy is so important when it comes to behavior change and, being able to choose essentially what you want to do with your body. Now, there are people that have a desire to lose weight and it's not coming from a healthy place, and that can be a discussion. That's another discussion, I think. But to just make a blanket statement of nobody should ever have intentional weight loss, I think is incredibly short-sighted. And it also ignores a lot of evidence that we have to support the fact that weight loss can be beneficial for people's health. Now, I do think that the anti-diet crowd has opened up some necessary dialogue to the fact that how we have gone about weight loss in the past has downsides and it needs to be improved. How we talk about food and people's relationships with food, people's relationships with their bodies, and the approach that we take as nutrition coaches and dietitians and whatever it is, like we have done it in a way in the past that has been detrimental and arguably like worse for you than the weight loss itself. Or not, sorry, worse for you than like the weight loss was good, but on the flip side, you like trashed your mental health, right? So I do think that dialogue is good. And that's where it's like the pendulum swing can be like there are positives to pendulum swings, even though we hate them sometimes. But I do think that has been beneficial. But again, like it's important that we bring the nuance into it, which is that, yeah, weight loss can be a positive thing. And sometimes it can be a wonderful thing for people in improving their health. But let's also consider how do we do this in a healthier way where we are considering your relationship with food, where we are considering your relationship with your body. And one of the things that I like to say often is that weight loss should always be something that enhances your life, doesn't ruin your life. And I mean, we see this in people when they go into deficits and they're so like mad about it, almost like they're like mad at their diet all the time, like, oh my gosh, I can't have this, I can't have that. And it's like their pursuit of weight loss is horrible and it's ruining their life, like they're mad at their diet. And that is not how my clients feel. They enjoy it. They enjoy the way that they feel, and that doesn't take away from the fact that it's hard. Like, it's still hard. However, when you are able to do it mindfully, when it's clear about what your values are, um, and how doing this hard thing is actually going to make your life better, and pursuing that, uh, it can it can be really positive. So I do think just making this blanket statement, it denies people the opportunity to, like, have their cake and eat it too, so to speak, achieve their weight loss goals while also, feeling great about themselves and feeling great about food and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you?
I think it's very, I mean, our whole world exists in extremes, right? Like whether it's politics, whether it's like the people who are like, your ingredient label should only have things you can pronounce and three things in it. And then the whole other side is like, this is science and that's just the scientific word for water. Like it's like the whole, there's always these extremes. And unfortunately, the extremes are always the loudest. Like that's just always how it's been in our society. And I agree with Allie. I think that anytime an extreme kind of opens up a conversation, there is probably something beneficial from either side to gain on that. So like with that anti-diet community kind of coming out real loud and real hard, there was conversations about how we do things, how we change things. I mean, the fact that I have clients that feel more comfortable losing weight or in a weight loss phase than they do maintaining and just living their lives is a very perfect example of that. Like, we should not be in this thing where it's like, if we're not losing weight, we're uncomfortable because that's weird. We weren't intended to be losing weight all the time, every day, our whole lives, every year. Like, that's not the point. Especially regardless of if you like have to or not, right? Like some people feel like they do have to, some people feel like they don't. Maybe other people would have a different opinion, but you should still be able to live in maintenance and not have maintenance be this like really uncomfortable thing because you've never done it before. Because we were all raised thinking that like we're supposed to be losing weight until we hit our goal weight and our goal body, which most of the time doesn't really exist because we keep pushing the bar higher and higher and higher. So I think there's that portion of it. I think, like Allie said, there's this beautiful in between in the power of and not or. And there's like, you can want to lose weight and go into deficit and appreciate your body. Like you can want to track macros and want to learn how to not track macros at the same time. Like you can do all these things. I mean, there's always going to be things that come out. I mean, I think even on like the whole, natural clean side of things, right? Like there was something this week that came out that like New York is banning 4 different laundry detergents because of ingredients that they have now. Like if it wasn't for that like supernatural community like pushing so hard, maybe that wouldn't have like come to the
Mhm.
rise of something. At the same time, does that mean that like all of us should be washing our clothes in like water and nothing else? Like no. So there's a power of and in the middle of this where you can want to be healthier, you can want to feel good and understand that like eating whatever you want is still available to you within reason. And so I
Yeah.
think and I think this might be like, I'm usually a very nice, gentle, whatever kind of coach. And there's a huge blunt side of me too. And the blunt side comes out where I'm like, there's a point where you have to be an adult. And being an adult is understanding that you need to eat your freaking vegetables. Okay. I don't know how to like sugarcoat it for you. Like,
Yeah.
sure, drink split and cheese if you want, but like you have to eat your broccoli. Like, I don't know. It's just necessary. Like you
It's
need
just
the
how your
things
body
that,
works.
right. Like you need the things that come from that. Now I'm not trying to like force something down someone's throat or tell them that, like, you could totally be healthy eating mac and cheese for every single meal and it's totally fine because this is what your weight does. And I think that's a whole other side of things. Like when macros really became a big thing, it was like, well, if it fits your macros, and there was this complete dismissal of actual like micronutrients and things that
Nutrients.
make you
Yeah.
feel healthy. Um, and so there's so many things on the in between and nuance and I think that's why like shameless plug for Allie and I like that's why hiring a coach can be really helpful because first of all, it's a ton of noise. Like it's just so much noise all the time from so many different sides. And if you're sitting there doing what I think most people should do and not just follow one side of things and like kind of create an idea that you're looking at all the different things, it can be really exhausting. And so having somebody there that's going to help you in your specific circumstance and your specific stuff. I mean, I've had a client in the last year that like we started working together, and within a week I told her like, here's your refund because you need to go see an RD for an eating disorder. This is different. And
Mm,
there's, there's benefit in people looking out for you that way. And I also don't think everybody who walks into my door and has a hard time like eating an entire bag of chips when they come home has a binge eating disorder. And so like you have to be able to have somebody else maybe sometimes seeing the difference there and just walking you through what's going on. I mean, even from a mom standpoint, Allie, I think both of you are well aware that I like tirelessly obsess over my son's sleep and can't figure it out. And there was a point where Allie was like, you're being obsessive and you need to like unfollow multiple friends, like unfollow all these sleep accounts,
yeah.
unfollow all this stuff, get rid of the noise. Don't have it just hit you the minute you open Instagram. If you need to find those things or information, you can look them up when you're in the right headspace to do so, but having it just readily available and shoved down your throat all the time may not be what's working best for you. And on the same token, like there might be a point where we're desperate enough that we have to, I shouldn't say desperate enough, but where we get to the point where we're like, maybe we do need to hire like a specific sleep consultant to help with our specific situation and what we're doing, and to kind of take like a third party view and look and see if it's really anything like wrong or specific that we can fix. And I think the same goes for dieting culture. I think it's great that we've tried to make it very accessible and that people can try to do this themselves and whatever, because not everybody has the means to hire a coach. And I understand that. And at the same time, I think that we've made it so accessible that we've completely clouded, like it's just so busy all the time with so many difference of opinions, and like even down to like how much protein somebody should eat. And if you're sitting there and you've never done this before and all these accounts are telling you to have like 1 gram per pound of protein and you don't really lift and you eat 20 grams of protein a day right now, you're going to fail. Like it's going to be
Yeah.
really, really, really difficult for you compared to having a coach that might say, how much, let's track for a little bit, see how much protein you're having. Oh, you're eating 20 grams. Okay. Next week, we're going to try for 40. Like, but that's not the
Mhm.
equation, right? Like that's not the equation that
Yeah.
everybody puts out there. So yeah, it's very noisy out there. And I feel grateful that like I'm in a position where I understand all this stuff and I was able to, create a job out of this and understand everything that goes into it for myself. But I was once that person on the other side that was just trying to figure it out and do every little thing that came at me to try to lose weight because I was just so desperate. And I felt like I just needed something to tell me what to do because it was all so noisy. And that's when I got trapped into like MLMs and fad diets and things like that, because you're just so desperate for something solid that you can just like blindly follow because the noise is so loud.
Oh yeah, I'm sure all of us have definitely been through that process, doing the work to fight through that noise and then finally see things as they really are. And I love that you guys are now in a position to be able to help others fight through that noise and find, the things in diet culture, anti-diet culture that are, positives of like, not having extremes and not cutting out food groups, but then also be like, no, you can do the things you want to do with your own body in a sustainable way. Absolutely. And so then, going on with our bodies and kind of switching gears to being postpartum, even during pregnancy, we can talk about that too, but being postpartum, especially, how have y'all been able to navigate your body image postpartum? And what has that looked like for you, either this time around in Allie's case or being a mom for the first time in Mikayla's case? So, what about you, Allie?
My like pregnancy, postpartum, it is a ride. It is a freaking ride for me.
Yeah.
And like my
Yes.
first son was I always thought, what, here's what I will say. I was blessed. I grew up with a mom that never dieted. I have always had probably a better body image than average for most women and girls. Uh, Still some level of like self-consciousness. I think that's pretty normal, but like I've always had a decent relationship with my body. And then I got pregnant for the first time, and that like totally opened the door to all sorts of things, and went to therapy, felt like I was in a
Mm.
great place, got pregnant again, and then realized I still had some work to do. And
Don't we
it,
all?
it's a ride. That being said, and also still feeling like I have a decent relationship with my body. Like I said, I feel like I have a leg up from a lot of women because of how I was raised and like the messaging that I got growing up. Um, it's the theme that uh, maybe threads all of everything together for me, and that I've always been able to come back to is really appreciating my body for what it's capable of doing. And as a teenager, that was in sports. I swam all through high school and into college. And so that was just something that, like, that was more important to me than fitting into a size small because I couldn't, because I had big shoulders because I swam, right? So that's what it looked like in high school. And then now as an adult, that looks like having a body that can grow children, but it is also having a body that allows me to play with my kids, and separate from being a mom, hike up mountains and lift heavy weights and do something that is really personally fulfilling. And that is a huge, huge motivator for me. It brings so much fulfillment to my life personally. So that's been a thread that has really helped me. And then, like I said, I went to therapy. So if you're feeling like all the tips on Instagram in the world aren't helping you with body image, there's a plug for therapy. um,
Yeah, definitely.
which it kind of goes back to what Mikayla was saying about like all the noise, right? And so sometimes it can be hard to kind of make sense um, of all of your goals, like you said. After having a kid, I wondered, is it okay that I want to lose weight? Like, am
Mhm.
I allowed to want that, or is that bad? Does that mean something about me? And that was something I worked through with a therapist, for her to help me see the and, right? Like, you can have the desire to lose weight and not hate your body, and like we can work on how to do that together, right? But again, appreciating my body for what it's capable of doing, and then also learning to just like separate like my value as a person from my appearance and what I look like. And some of that comes with time, I think, but then over that time continually repeating to myself and receiving and like consuming the message that doesn't matter, that it's not important. And that can be in the form of personal mantras, but like I said, also the content that I consume and the things that I read and everything like that. I unfollow accounts if I find myself getting jealous, thinking like, oh my gosh, look at how great she looks postpartum, and I want to look like that.
Yeah.
Or we have like we all do this, like we hate follow people, like it's so stupid.
How dare you expose our secrets? Just kidding.
But
No.
then if I notice I'm doing that, I make a point to just unfollow. And it doesn't have, and here's the thing about hate following. It has nothing to do with the person, and it has everything to do with me. Like, it is
Yeah.
all. So I say this with confidence because this is not like a dig on anybody out there. Like, this is me. Like, this is 100% my own thing that I have to work through. And so noticing when I'm seeing things and it's triggering insecurities in myself, and just like unfollowing it so that I can kind of silence that and go inward to work through that in my own way. That has been really, really helpful. And I mean, there are things that I did feel, I don't know, like it's normal to feel about self-conscious about, whether that's weight gain, stretch marks, loose skin, like all these things that we deal with. Um, Postpartum, I think it's normal to feel some fear around it. And I also think it's okay. Like, you can feel those things, and that doesn't mean that you have bad body image or that there's something wrong with you. I think it's really normal to feel fear of those things and to feel some insecurity. But then I think from there, like, what are you going to do with that, with those fears and with that insecurity? Are you going to let that dictate your whole life and what you do? Uh, Or are you just going to let that kind of exist and maybe sit with some of that discomfort and continue to live the life that you want to live? And my answer is always like, I'm not going to let that stuff hold me back from going to the water park with my son. I remember when I was 8 months pregnant, 9 months pregnant with my latest baby, and I had stretch marks on my thighs, I had stretch marks on my belly, and I didn't want we went to, like, we lived close to an amusement park, and I wanted to take my oldest son to the water park, and I remember feeling like, "Ugh, like, I've got all these new stretch marks on my thighs. I don't wanna go, but I do wanna go. Like, I want to go. I want to go with him." And so I went to Target, I got a swimsuit that fit me, and I was like, "I know I feel self-conscious, but I'm just gonna go anyway, and I'm gonna go
Mhm.
feeling self-conscious, and I'm gonna make these memories with my son, and it's gonna be fine." And
Yeah.
I don't care if somebody might see my stretch marks and think stupid things, and that's not going to hurt me, right?
Right.
Like their thoughts about me aren't going to hurt me, and then on the flip side of it, they're also probably not thinking anything. So
Yeah.
all okay. So ultimately, like, feel your discomfort, feel your fear, but then make decisions that move you to the life that you want to live and the person that you want to be. And the more you continue to do that, the easier it gets. And the more that reinforces the message that all this extra stuff actually doesn't matter.
Yes. Stretch marks are normal, people. They are. We all are all beautiful. So Michaela, what about you? I know that a lot of you said your focus of your coaching is body image, and you have a lot of really great Instagram content on body image that I have always really appreciated. So what about you?
So mine is going to be, I'm going to be very candid with my answer because I don't think I've actually been candid about this yet since I've been postpartum, except for with Allie. I'm sure you've picked Allie and I are like best friends. We
Yeah.
talk every
Yeah.
single day, multiple times a day on multiple different platforms. So
Yeah. That's why I had you guys come
Got my
together.
mom in there.
like there's like a text message happening, an Instagram message on both. We both have two Instagram accounts, like one for business, one for personal. We're like sending different memes on those accounts. We have a Marco Polo, like it's
I
obscene.
love it.
Um, so to the point where I think like when we call each other, we're like, "Are you okay?"
Then it's like, did I already tell you this? Like, which platform did I tell you?
Which message thread?
Have you seen this message yet?
Like I send the meme on one side and forget that I sent it on the other one. So I think Allie might be one of the only people I've actually been very candid about this with. So I know she's not going to judge or anything because she knows what's coming. But I was the opposite of Allie. And I think I'm still the opposite of Allie, which is kind of interesting because there was a little bit of like a crossover that happened where I grew up very self-conscious, the worst body image you could possibly experience, very young, like 11 years old, didn't want to go to the pool. Really bad relationship with food. I had a whole summer, I vividly remember it, where I would like barely eat anything. And then I would like hoard a ton of food in my room and like eat it from like midnight till 3 in the morning and then like not eat for a day and a half. So like probably an eating disorder. I mean, let's be real. Like it was very disordered eating at the very least of that. A lot of things going on in my life, parents getting divorced, things like that. Middle school, I went to a very, I don't know how to say it, middle school where it was very grown up. We'll put it that way. There was things I was exposed to I should not have been exposed to that young. I hope I can shelter my kids from that a little bit, with what schools we choose to send them to. Um, just kind of the exact opposite of Allie, where like I was not lucky in how I grew up when it came to like when you envision the like crappy girl growing up body image and bad relationship with food, I was like the poster child of that.
And I was
Um,
next to you. I'm with you. I'm with you. I feel
it's
you. Go
so
on.
hard. It's so, and I like, there was a lot of years of blaming my parents. I think there's still, I don't know if blame is the right word, as more of it's just like their actions were definitely part of that, whether or not it was intentional. I don't think it was. I think I've gotten over the like blame part of that. One of the things I tell a lot of my clients is if you are struggling with this is to go follow kids eating accounts, like kids nutrition accounts, kids like the Growing Intuitive Eaters, like Kids Eat in Color, Nicole Cruz, like they are some of my favorite accounts because following them when you're kind of in this like lens of this is how I want to raise my kids around food, and I didn't have a good, example of that, you actually start kind of like healing your inner child because you're kind of like watching all this stuff and being like, that's why I feel this way. Cause like that's not how food was handled in my house as a kid.
Mhm.
So just a little quick tangent there. But that's I was again poster child for all of that. A complete opposite of Allie. I was not athletic. I was a ballerina, which I could argue now is very much an athlete. But at the time it was like I wasn't in sports, I wasn't running, I wasn't doing the normal things. We weren't weightlifting. We were literally put in front of a mirror for hours and hours a week and told to look as small and delicate as possible. So while we had to be very, very strong, and it's still something I love dearly, it's again, if I have a daughter and she wants to do ballet, there's going to be a lot of conversations about like, you're quite literally sitting there looking in a mirror, being compared to everybody in the room around you. Um, just every single thing that could have possibly happened to make my body image horrible was there. Um, I struggled with body image fad diets all the way up until I got married. I was actually my heaviest when I got married and or close to it. And also started just like kept gaining weight, kind of had to deal with some gut health issues, like a bunch of other stuff. It was during the time when I was working on my gut health that the person I was working with was like, you physically cannot lose weight right now. Like we cannot go into an intentional deficit because we need to figure this stuff out first. It doesn't make sense to do both at the same time. So find something else to focus on is when I started to learn how to weight lift for real, like got a strength coach, learned how to do it. It was in person. And I would say that during that time is when my body image became the best. And I did have some body composition changes. So like the way my body looked was different, even though the scale hadn't moved. Um, and I started feeling great because I was strong and I still had a lot of weight to lose and more than I realized actually. And I was like, I was happy with it because it was like for the first time somebody took loss off the table. Like they were like, you can't do this right now. So find something else. Um, and I really, really worked on body image through that. Because I've never been really skinny. I've always been a bigger girl. Not huge, not, I would say I've actually probably been normal, but I felt huge my whole life. And I had very, very skinny friends. And my sister is very small. And so like compared to everyone in my life, I was a bigger person. In my sorority, I was one of the bigger people, things like that. So getting pregnant, I think like both my husband and I had this kind of apprehension of like, what is this going to do to my body? And that fear that Allie was talking about, that's so normal. And like, gosh, I'm so nervous. Well, plot twist, I was one of those people that I think people want to label as like, God, you're so lucky, you must be nice, whatever. I lost weight in my first trimester. I was throwing up like crazy. I had no appetite. I was pretty much nauseous. I don't know. Allie was like a day update. So like what, Allie, maybe like a cumulative of like 3 to 4 weeks where I didn't feel like crap.
Gosh, maybe, yeah.
Like,
it was like, you're still sick. It was like that.
and even if it wasn't like actively throwing up, it was like really, it was no appetite, work to have a Jamba Juice smoothie, nothing tasted good. And so I did like, and I knew the worst part was that the pressure of like, I'm doing something wrong to my baby, right? Like I'm not feeding enough. I'm not getting enough food. They're not getting enough nutrients. Like there was a whole different side of that I was not prepared for. I thought I was going to have to be on the other side of like, you're going to have to track throughout your pregnancy so you don't eat everything in the room. I never had a pregnancy craving. It was like very bizarre. Like the whole thing was just not what I expected. And then I had a decently traumatic birth and like quick, like, recovery, and like literally dropped so much weight after I gave birth, like so much weight. About 20 pounds less than when I got pregnant. Like it was fast and it was very, very unhealthy. And it's been weird because I've maintained that weight loss for the most part and not with any intention of one way or the other. I didn't have an appetite immediately postpartum, had to really, really force food so I could create milk and things like that. And it's interesting because like I told Allie literally this morning on Marco that like, is it nice to be in postpartum and not think about weight loss? 1000%. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and be like, oh, but like poor me, right? Like whatever. Like, of course, especially being somebody who's big my whole life, like it's like, oh, like all I had to do was have a freaking baby. That was all it took. Like, great, like, and it was not the side I was expecting to be on. Like, I thought I was going to be on the side of like, really would have probably exploded with my weight with a pregnancy.
Yeah.
And so it really hit me out of nowhere. And it hit me with all of this, like, actually the opposite of like shame, and that shame that you were talking about, like when you were doing a deficit and you felt like you couldn't post it. Like, I don't feel like I'm allowed to post about my insecurities right now because I'm in the like, must be nice you dropped a bunch of weight crowd after
Yeah.
having and again, I'm not going to lie and say it's not like nice to not have to think about weight loss, but do you know what takes longer than losing weight? Building freaking muscle back. And I had worked so dang hard for that muscle and lost so much
Yep.
of it. And probably more of my weight loss was from muscle than anything else. And having to get that back with trying to be postpartum, with trying to manage a schedule, with, like pelvic floor issues and things like that, has been a whole different level of body image insecurity that I wasn't prepared for. Um, Going to the gym and being worried about like peeing my pants has been something like that recently came up that I was like, this blows. And this is a whole different
Mhm.
level of self-consciousness that I didn't know existed. I also like, just to paint a picture, last year we moved to Utah. We got a new Christmas tree for our new house. It was a 7.5 foot Christmas tree. The box itself is as big as me. On the actual box, it says like 2-person lift. And here I am last year, like whipping this thing out of the at-home store into my car. Everybody on the way being like, do you need help? Do you need help? And I'm like, no, I got it. I got it. Whatever. This year, my husband's like, hey, I brought the tree out for you. I'm like, great. Thank you. I'm like 3 months postpartum. And I go to pick it up and I'm like, huh. And I could not physically pick up this box more than like literally getting it an inch off the floor and like moving it over a foot. And I like sobbed. I was like, I hate this. Like, I would rather have all the fat loss to lose, like everything I need to do than not be this weak. Like, I hate being this weak. This sucks. And so I think I'm opening up a little bit on it on this podcast because I feel like it's a safe space, but because I just feel like without the nuance and the understanding and the conversation, it just comes off like, oh, again, must be nice. Um, but it has been like almost a very, again, we kind of like switched, right? Like Allie had to like lose weight after baby. I didn't. And it was like, I grew up with all this horrible weight loss or this like, weight self-consciousness and body image stuff. And I will be honest, it's been really hard to even come up with like posts on Instagram about body image anymore because I don't want to be labeled as like the must be nice person. So
Yeah.
um with all that said, I feel like I wanted to just say that because I feel like what Allie said about body image is like, I agree with every single part of it wholeheartedly. It was the advice I needed when I was going through all of that. And I think that there's a lot to learn from being on this side of it too, and a lot to talk about. And I would guarantee there's more people out there that feel my way as well that probably could utilize hearing about that. But it's just never been my clientele. It's never been my following and my people. So, um, I'm still kind of navigating that, but I will say that like being strong, regardless of if you're at your goal weight or you're not at your goal weight, or you're still losing weight, or you feel skinny and too skinny, or whatever it is, being strong is like from both situations. Like now I'm really weak. And during the time I was at my heaviest is when I started focusing on strength and my body image became the best. And so like when you have muscle, when you feel like a badass in the gym, when you feel like you can do all this stuff, your body image is most likely going to be better because
Mhm.
there's so much confidence that comes from like knowing that you are strong. And I think Allie can really relate to that too and would agree. And I know you would too. Like it's being able to like lift things, heavy things, and show that to your kids. And then you'd be able to utilize that later with like playing around with your kids or throwing them up in the air or like whatever it is. Um, Especially as moms and as moms of boys, like having our boys see us, like be able to do something that is maybe a lot of moms weren't doing when we were kids, I think is going to be
Mhm.
hugely impactful. And so I would say like regardless of where you're at in your weight situation and how you feel about your body and whether you're self-conscious because you're skinny or self-conscious because you're bigger or whatever it is, like I always feel like the answer is still going to be like being strong and just getting strong and feeling confident in the gym. So, very like candid and not something I'm always really comfortable talking about. I think Allie is the only person I've really talked openly about that with. And she's totally made fun of me for it before too. So
You make me sound mean. But here's what I will say though, like to back Michaela is like just the value of feeling strong because I mean, here's Michaela, she's smaller, that would be the societal ideal, right? But she is struggling because of how she feels daily and the fact that there are things that like basic things like putting a Christmas tree away that she's struggling with right now. And then on the flip side, like here I am and I had like 40 pounds that I wanted to lose postpartum. And I'm still actively in a fat loss phase, but I feel so good in general about my body. And that's because I have been lifting consistently since I could, postpartum.
Mhm.
And I didn't have a super active pregnancy this time around for a multitude of reasons. But when I could get back to lifting, I did. And my mental health like went way up and my body image improved drastically, and that's like well before I've gotten to the place that I want to get physically, because I lifting really does something for you, to be able to feel confident that yeah, you can pick things up and take them where they need to go, and that you have a strong and capable body that can do what you want it to do. Like I was
Yeah.
thinking the other day, I was just sitting on sit on the floor and rock my youngest to sleep most nights. Like I just rock him in my arms sitting on the floor. And I was just thinking the other day, like as I got up to put him in his crib, I'm holding him with both arms, and the fact that I was able to get up off the floor while holding my baby with both of my arms and put him in his crib, no problem. Like most people can't, there's a lot of people
Mm.
that can't do that,
Yeah.
And I can do that because of lifting, like that. I 100% can attribute it to that. And that's really, really cool.
Yes. Oh my
And
gosh.
after
Yes.
my C-section, I remember telling Nate, like, the amount of other muscles I'm having to recruit because my abs are physically incapable of working right now without so much pain. Like, it was so nice to be like, okay, like, just use your arms. And I could pull my entire body weight up by my biceps and just like, whoop, like, get everything up because that's what I needed to do, or like put all the load in my legs and my glutes and like not recruit any core whatsoever because it hurt so bad. And I just remember thinking, like, what do people who are not strong do after this freaking surgery? Like,
Yep.
what on earth? Like, and I had already lost so much muscle and I still had enough to recruit that. And I think it's just all of this to say, not only is like strength training so good for you and being strong is so good for you, but I think it also just feeds into this like theme that regardless of how you feel about your body, weight loss is not always the answer. And being smaller is not always the answer. And that there's so many other facets of how you feel is, and this is what I say on every podcast I'm on about body image, that like how you feel dictates your body image and what, like how you feel physically. Like if you feel good, if you feel energetic, you feel focused, you feel on top of things, you feel like you can run around with your kids and it's no big deal. And, all of that stuff, you don't feel nervous about food. You feel like you wear pants that actually fit you and then they're not digging into you all day and reminding you that they don't fit. Like all of these things that add up during your day to make you feel a certain way. I mean, body image is fleeting and it's honestly pretty like not credible for the most part. Like your thoughts about it aren't credible because they change so rapidly when nothing else has. And so like focusing more on how you feel is going to be part of that. And even on this side of it, it's like that's what's been trying to get me back into the gym as much as I struggle with it right now is like you have to go back because like your body image right now is tanking. I mean, we have a trip to Cancun and this is the first year that I'm not like, oh my gosh, like I need to lose weight to look good in a bikini. I'm like, son of a gun, if I don't have any muscle to show for how much work I have done in the past few years, like I'm going to be pissed. Like I don't even care like how I look. I just want to have some muscle, dang it. Like,
Yeah.
and so it is like one of those things where sure, I see a vacation and I'm doing something to change my body for that. But so much of it is more like knowing I'm going to have to carry my son through an airport, probably in a baby carrier and not have my back hurt. So
Oh yeah, the back pain is a huge one postpartum.
yeah. Also, you posted the other day, I have to just say, like, you posted this like small little snippet of you standing at the countertop and like changing your footing so that your pelvis wasn't like tilting forward. I do that all the time now. And I'm like so great. Every single time I'm like, love her. I'm so
Oh,
glad she
I love that. Yeah, PT recommended it to me and I'm like, "Yay, I'm not squeezing my butt at the counter anymore."
yeah, just such an easy fix to like change
Yeah.
that and have that awareness. And I think that's, so much more, whether it's your pelvic floor and leaking or things that are kind of behind the scene, your mental health, things that people don't see on your body, all contribute to how you feel as a human every single day. And again, I feel like I've been so wrapped up with like honestly some postpartum anxiety that I haven't even had a time to care about my body or my body image. And who knows if that would be different if I was bigger and felt like I had weight
Yeah.
to lose. But like, it hasn't even really crossed my mind because there's so much other turmoil going on over here.
There's so much postpartum, especially the first time you're postpartum. It's always a trip every time, but becoming a first time mom is mind boggling. And so you're doing a really good job. You really are. You are doing so many things.
Because I have Allie to keep me grounded.
Yeah. I
On
just
every
want,
single app.
yeah, I just
Here for
wanted
you.
to add to the strength conversation of, we'll wrap up, but just end with this of, my body image this postpartum has been more on the Allie side of, oh, I have this much amount that I've gained. I had a very stressful pregnancy, not because of the pregnancy, but just life was stressful. And I gained a lot of extra stress weight. Is that a thing? Stress weight?
I feel like you guys had very similar pregnancies with like
Yeah.
your life going
Yes.
on.
Yes,
Like,
moving
Yeah.
and like losing things. Like it was very, very emotional, a lot of emotional turmoil. So coming into this postpartum, I was in a bigger body than I had been in years. And I was really discouraged because like I had also worked really hard on a lot of body image things and of course my physical body and aesthetics and all that. But what I've come to discover is yes, this is a physically bigger body, but I want to be lifting really freaking heavy. And I've been able to do that this postpartum. And last time, even though I had the quote body I wanted, I was not deadlifting almost 250. I was like barely getting to 200. And like that is my individual goal is to lift as freaking heavy as I can. And I'm like finally doing that. And it was in a bigger body that I never expected that. And like I still have had like, fat loss phases postpartum that yes, I have definitely had that. But to be able to settle in and be like, I'm okay in this bigger body right now has been a huge, huge mental shift, a huge body image win. And to be able then to feel confident again in the gym and then like you were saying, not even have to think about standing up with my kids or carrying both of my big boys up the stairs, like whatever it is, and so it's like, yeah, I'm not in my smallest body right now, and that is so okay, and the strength has been the best part of it and the most important part of it, and it does make everything in life so much easier and your body image is better. Because I know that if I wasn't lifting really heavy right now, then my body image wouldn't be what it is. It wouldn't be easier to, I guess, quote, handle this change that my body's gone through. And so I think that that is something I want for so many moms, all the moms, not so many, all the moms to be able to have this experience of lift your weights. You don't have to lift as heavy. I mean, you don't have to have the same goals as me to lift like super heavy. You don't. Just be able to have some amount of strength, though, is so beneficial for, yes, your life and your body image and all the things. So,
it creates something that you do for yourself, which I think we all
yeah.
agree after you become a mom, there's not very many things that are for you and like don't. And we could argue that, lifting benefits everybody in our family for sure, but like it really is like for you and only
Yeah.
for you and that time is for you. And yeah, I mean, I'm the one who like sees your videos and I'm like, God, I miss the barbell. Like I miss being able to do that. I miss being able to lift that much. And I'm with you. I was at my heaviest weight when I was pushing the heaviest weights. And I like really miss that. I look back at
Yeah.
some of my logs and I'm like, son of a
And you'll get back there. It takes
I'll get
takes
back there.
time. You will. And that's the thing that I also want everybody to know is that whatever your goal is, you absolutely can and will get there. You just have to give it time. And that is really hard postpartum.
Yeah.
Any other final thoughts from either of you before we wrap this up?
I don't think this was so fun. I really liked it.
Obviously, we could talk forever.
We
and
could,
do.
yeah.
So
We'll put a cap on it. I know that Mikayla has a meeting to get to after this, but we could talk forever. Maybe we'll meet again in another 6 months and see the updates for everybody.
Yeah, that would be fun. I know there's always like there's just so many topics about this to discuss that.
Yeah. Yes. Well, thank you both so very much. This was absolutely amazing. And I I'm so grateful for y'all's example for leading online and in your communities and being able to help moms. Not all moms are your clients, but most of them are. So yay, help the moms. And where can we find both of you online? Allie, you can start.
I'm at alliehenry.rd on Instagram. Allie is with an IE and Henry is with an IE, sorry. And then I'm also at alliehenryrd.com.
Perfect.
And I am just mainly on Instagram, and my Instagram is Mikayla Emily, which is Mikayla. I know that's spelled a lot of different ways. Emily like normal, and then underscore at the end. So
awesome. And I'll put all that in the show notes. But thank you so much